So the idea of my first spiritual teacher, Philip Knight, versus Philip the Fair, who was the king of France who murdered the Templars. Philip the Knight with stars. Philip said that we were heading for a climacteric and that we would have huge catastrophes that would force us to change our ways. And on a bottom level, that would be a huge police state. And it would be a long debate. It would be a long debate to come to decide what system would work best, which probably we'll be talking a little bit about that in a minute. I think it's a better idea to go to the center of your cathedral and breathe down from your head into your heart, up from your soft belly into your heart, and to sit with full alertness and all the powers of your feelings and love in the midst of your heart at a 0 point, with the highest ideals that are possible, and at least once a day for 10 or 15 minutes, to have some kind of meditation practice where you sit in your heart and you wish for enlightenment and you pray that everyone will come to some kind of new realization. You don't have to do more than 5 or 10 minutes a day for fear that you'll get bored with it. Rudolf Steiner makes mention that all spiritual paths, I'm probably paraphrasing immensely, but all spiritual paths run through the heart. Through heat, Rudolf Steiner says, through heat or warmth, we pass more and more from space into time, and it becomes possible to seek the moral in the physical. There's a lot to be said for the warmth of love enkindling the cold intellectual thinking, and the light of spiritual thinking to enkindle our actions with intelligence rather than just passion or instinct. So that the passion and warmth of our belly goes into our thinking, the love goes into the thinking, and the clear light of thinking goes into our willing, and that one is seated at center between these two pillars. In the card of the Mayflower bookshop, where you see the goddess sitting between the sun and moon, that goddess sits between the sun and moon. When you're awakened in your metabolic sex center, usually you're the sun there, you're the moon here watching or being still. When you're awake intellectually, you're the moon holding still, but the earth is in the heart. Parsifal was called a widow's son, as Milarepa was. Parsifal was known as the son of the widow. Masons are called this too, the widow's son. Horus is the widow's son of Isis. And the idea is that the king and the land are no longer one. T.S. Eliot has a poem called The Wasteland, and the Grail stories begin that the king and the land are no longer one, and that the earth is turning into a wasteland, which it is. And who will heal the ailing king? Philip Knight would say that the ego is sick. The spiritual ego within us is sick. It has fallen from heaven. And who is the fool that would dare in the tarot cards? The Fool card is Parsifal. It's a higher version of Don Quixote, and at times may even fall into a Faustian path. But Faust is in love, and his guilt or shame for making mistakes in his love life further him in his trying to redeem earth from the sea and trying to do good works and acts and virtuous acts that help the world. And at the end, even when Faust dies, they try to find his soul, Goethe's Faust. They say that the devil, representing the devil Mephistopheles, says that Faust surely must be in his belly. So they rip open Faust's belly, looking Faust's eyes. And he had made a pact with the devil, the devil would do anything Faust requested, and Faust, in return, is that Faust gets to live a long life, gets everything he wants, and either he lives a long life, or the moment the devil can make him fully content, that at any moment in your life that you're fully content, the devil gets your soul. Otherwise, you have to live to be, how can you be content with a world like this? You might be content, but your neighbor isn't. And this is the problem of the egotist. You can't live on the earth unless there's an earth to live. If you're madly in love, you hope that the other person's going to be happy. After a while, they want friends. Those friends want friends. And pretty soon, you're joining yourself into the neighborhood, the community. So Faust dies at an old life, doing tons of virtuous deeds. He promised Mephistopheles that Lucifer could have his soul. Mephistopheles has worked so hard, he says, he's grasping the air if the soul tries to get out. He says, quick, tear open his guts. He had me go all the way to France for some good wine and bread and stuff, and I had to go all around the world getting him food, and he was eating all this good, healthy food. Oh, he's having sex, he's enjoying it. Blessing everybody who suffers, making a wish. And he's down there. They tear open they can't find his soul. They go, crack open his head. He had to know everything. He's such an intellectual guy. He had every book. I had to go get books for him in Germany and stuff. China, ancient Taoist texts, the alchemist. To break open his skull, he's in there. And they break open his skull, and they can't find him. And at this point, the angels come down. The angels descend. And they're dropping rose petals that are turning into flames of love. And the flames are so hot that Mephistopheles, who's used to being in hell with Lucifer, his skin is burning. He's going, what fire is this that burns hotter than Lucifer's flames of hell? Love. Some of you may not have experienced it yet. Sorry. There's still time. So then, the Lemur skeleton men jump back to hell. They can't handle the heat. Mephistopheles' skin is melting. He's got to stay. And the angels come and take Faust at the last moment because he's in his heart. He's not in the upper and lower chamber. He's in the middle way. And as he goes up, he says, lead on, eternal feminine, lead on. And the woman he loved before is dead is now in a metamorphosized form as a Sophia angel in eternal Helen of Troy. A margarita. It's not a drink. A Mary of sorts. Pardon me?
Each woman is all women. The archetype.
Yeah, actually each person is all these things. Each person is the Mephistopheles and the skeleton man. And in all the fairy tales and myths, we're all these people. We have a wasteland going on. Ask Al Gore. There's a little wasteland going on.
In his brain.
Yeah, he wants his breath and he wants to keep it. Okay, so I've said enough. And yeah, you see the idea of the Grail is I want to make sure I hit everything. You enter the cathedral as Arthur, but you leave as Parsifal. You enter all the cathedrals face east. Stonehenge and Chartres face the most northern east, where the summer solstice sun rises. Most of the churches face direct east, middle way kind of. This is a very interesting point. But Arthur's using the astral body descends, the etheric body rises, and the etheric body forms the cup that the fire of the solar logos descends into. So you have the spin of the earth forms the etheric body, and through the warmth of the blood, through the warmth of your love in the blood, the reincarnated ego is in the blood. See, all of us have a sense of eternal self. It's the warmth in your blood. But we don't have a headlight yet. You have to develop your thinking. Other people develop their thinking at a cost where they turned off the warmth. one of the myths of the Grail is that the good guys have the cup. The good guys have love and religion. We're going to go to church and we're helping the poor, and we're donating, and we're going to feed you some free soup if you're poor, give you some clothes. And then we have these good guys that have the cup, that they're sharing the meal. Then you have the bad guys that have the sword. They have the military-industrial complex, and they're making money. And they're the Cain mysteries, and they're digging up all the earth and everything. There's the Cain and Abel mysteries. And it's always happening again. Abel's always getting killed. Or Hiram's getting killed and built the temple.
So are you going to riff on the chalice and the daggers and the hermetics?
In the Hermetics, the dagger?
The dagger and the chalice.
Well, I mean, some people have brought together. I mean, what really is the highest way of looking at this is the cosmic spiritual intelligence of the world around you, the whole universe, spins through the astral body, through your nervous system, to the very tip of your fingertips and your sexual point. And the tickle in your toes even. And then the earth spins up, and there's an energy that rises from the earth, and women, it internalizes the penis and ovaries as the clitoris, the penis and testicles get internalized as the clitoris and the ovaries. So the etheric energy of the earth spins, and women have more earth energy. So it spins up, and they have an intuitive thing. They may not have the logic. You get it? And so the earth, the cosmos spins, and it comes down to want to will something out. The will. It's not just the penis. I mean, I'm saying the penis and the clitoris so I can get your attention. But it comes into the will, where you're going, I'm going to go do this, and now I have to go there. Now we're going to dig, and now we're going to, and then the other part goes up, and you're going, wait a minute, I'm having a flash. If thine eye be single, the whole body is filled by the third eye and all stuff. And so when we have both of these in balance, when the male and female is in balance, when earth and the heavens are in balance, you're in the middle between the two pillars. You see? And you're making the six-pointed star. That's why when you're making love, you're kind of making a six-pointed star. And we could say that sharp thinking of the intellect is the sword or the spirit. We could say that. Or we could say the will is too. We could say that. And that the thinking that's purified is the cup. The skull cup. We could say that. We could say that the arising kundalini is the fiery sword. And it could go either way. See, spiritually speaking, there's 12 world views. We don't have time to go into it, but Rudolf Steiner says there's 12 world views. And materialism is a legitimate view, and so is spirituality. And the real Rosicrucian rose and cross and the sword and cup is to bring together intellectual, scientific, sense perceptive, 7 and 6 sense too, by the way, and bring that together with the ultimate love, which is social justice, and harmony with the whole world around us, to bring love and truth together in the heart. And so the a lot of times you see that there's partial truths that people have, and they're taking a stab with a dagger at it. And then they cut somebody with their knowledge, but they don't really have a balance of the cup and the sword. And one of the mythologies is that the good guys had the cup and the bad guys had the sword. The bad guys have all the knowledge, and then the good guys have all this love, and they're kind of naive and dumb. And you're just a girl, you don't know. And stuff like that. And men treat women like that, especially around the Super Bowl. And then there are sensitive guys that suffer this feminine psyche thing. And so the mythology is that whoever can put the cup and the sword together rule the world. And Klingsor has set up a false Grail castle. He's like the Klingons. And he wants to have this whole mechanical harmonic universe. There's two devils kind of. Like one devilish duality, and there's one wrong turn. Instead of the middle road, you're going to get to that guy, and the guy's traveling along the road, and it splits. And both ways are wrong. Something new has to happen. There's both ways are wrong. There's one way that's erroneous is that everything gets hardened and ritualized and structured. And why didn't you do what I said? and it's a counting system, and it's a machine. You're running a machine to make money, and you're running a machine to have sex. And love, what does love have to do with this? Bang, bang. And then the other way is that how do I escape all this? And can't we just have fun? Can we go on a vacation? And don't you want to make love and have a soulmate and live happier ever after? Have another glass of wine, or have another smoke, or have another whatever, have another kiss. I mean, kissing will do it. What does drugs have to do with it? Kissing will do it. And if you know what you're doing, And but what happens is everybody gets jaded and nothing works anymore. And nothing's going to work forever. So you develop nothing. If nothing's going to work forever, develop nothing. Have an emptiness practice, a stillness practice. Any questions? So let's see if there's any questions, because I've been going kind of long, and maybe we have time. I don't know how we're doing time. We're getting a little late. But do anybody want to say anything else about this? Because there's many ways to go. And see, the Grail myth, here's the thing about the Grail. And that's why I'm writing a book about the Grail. There was some kind of deep spiritual truth that all humanity just knew. We all knew. The fact that you were born, you had an automatic knowledge. The fact that you're born and you're on this earth, you have a right to this knowledge. And all of us were given it in primordial times. And the Grail got busted. And it's in little pieces everywhere. And everybody has a little piece. And how anybody can put it together. You can say all we need is love, but what will protect love? Truth. But then if you have truth, for real, truth is so hard when you really get to the truth. And even if you just get to the facts of what's really going on with economy, religion, economics, governments, banking, what's really going on with our bodies in the air. I mean, it's like hard. Truth and facts are tough. And you need love and compassion to soften it up and figure out where to go with that. When does anybody who has real power and money and political power talk about love and compassion? And when do guys in the church, you go to any church, when do they really tell you what's going on with pollution and politics and economics? Because if they do, you may not come back next week. When do they, in the church, where do they give you real work to do that's spiritual, that would help you to get smarter and more loving in a way that works? That you love in a way that actually helps your mother and your neighbors and your kids. The church won't give you work. They want you to just go to sleep. Rudolf Steiner says that in the modern churches, the people that go to the church will meet Lucifer, and Ahriman, or Satan, is running the ritual. Are you following me? That's a really important one. That, in other words, the guy running it's running it like a machine, and he's got a ritual, and there's time, and then at a certain time you do this, and then that collection wasn't what it was last week. What's going on? And it's an accounting system. But then the people that come to church are all going, oh, it feels so good. Okay, I love you. Peace out of it. Just a little piece of my heart now, baby. Come on! Just take another little piece of my heart. I love it. I love it. It's so good. You got it? So, that's a scary freaking thought. Rudolf Steiner says you go to church and Ahriman's running the ritual, and all the people are meeting Lucifer. And I read that, and I went to this church, and I went to this church because people were getting their kid baptized, And I went to this church, and I looked up, and I saw, Jesus was on this gnarled metal on a cross. It was a modern-day cross. And I went, ah! I really thought, oh, my God. Because that's Ahriman's thing, is this tortured metal. It's all machinery, and Ahriman wants you to be frozen and with fear and paralyzed and be always forced good, and it's a dictatorship. And Lucifer wants you to get high and be a hippie in the backyard in the wrong way. Hippie. Okay, so there's no questions or anything. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what should one read first as far as the last one? Versus Unveiled?
I think, excuse me, Eschenbach's Parsifal or Crichton de Troyes, there's a copy up there. the Grail romances. And these are beautiful. They're beautiful fairy tales that each one of us would interpret in a different way. Like another thing, all the Knights of the Grail, when you're an Arthurian knight and you're one of the guys looking for the Grail, you have to go out in the world and find the Grail, and you have to enter this perilous journey and this dark, wild woods and forest, and no one can enter at the same place. There are these rules. You have to find your own way into the craziness and the chaos of the world. You have to follow your bliss and your wish and your star over your head. And that each Grail Knight has to find their own way into this really thick, thick woods, into the darkness of our own self and the ignorance of the world. And another rule of the Knights, I want you to have these rules, because when you get out there tonight and you get out and you tell your husband, look, I got a horse, I'm going out, and I'm wearing, I'm looking for the Grail. Because if you find the Grail, it nourishes, the Grail heals all illness, and it nourishes, everybody gets whatever they need. When you find the Grail, you get whatever you need, and everybody has different needs. The Grail promises this. And the king, and it will heal the king. And Parsifal meets the Grail. He goes to the Grail castle. And he sees the Grail, and the Virgin carries the Grail, and his sword comes in that's bleeding at the tip. And he's mystified by all the beautiful people. And his food comes out of the Grail, nourishes everybody, whatever they want, and a little bit more. And he was taught by this guy who trained him, don't ask any questions, shut up. And he doesn't ask the question. He forgets to ask what this is for. See, this is a huge thing. Is that when you meet your orgasm, when you meet your beloved, when you meet the spiritual moment, when you meet you just won the lottery, or you have a God experience, or this beatific love in your heart melts for your kid, who finally, after being a terrible person for 5 days, just said he loved you in some new way. That's what kids do. They're really bad, and then all of a sudden they do something good, and you fall in love with them. That's their job. They make you go nuts first. But here's the point. Here's the point. And so is your lover. That's what the lovers are for too. They're going to show you every one of your weakest points. It's better to have your lover show you your worst side than your enemies. I think. I'm not sure. A lot of us marry our ex-enemy to work it out. But anyway, so when you meet the Grail and you have this beatific experience, you're supposed to ask, who does this serve? Why is this for? In other words, when you have $1 million, you go, why did I get this $1 million? Why do I have this? Who does this serve? What does this orgasm serve? What does this beautiful wine serve? And that's why you say grace before and after meals. That's why you say, I offer this up to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, may all beings find enlightenment. You have some kind of thing you're trying to do, And that's one of the rules, is that you have to ask, who does it serve when you have a blissful experience? And then when you have a bad experience, you wish that all your bad karma would burn off, and then you'd be able to find the Grail and heal the king, and the king's no longer one of the land, and you're looking for this cup that can hold us all. What would hold us all? The sunshine within you, maybe. So then another rule of the Knights of the Grail is that you can never sleep at the same place twice. In other words, when you read Parsifal and Creighton de Troyes, there's these little rules like this. And they're amazing when you think of them spiritually. You can never sleep at the same place twice. In other words, you had a good day, you made a bunch of money, you gave a bunch of readings, you sold a bunch of stuff, you got laid, you made love while you were getting laid, by the way. You didn't just have sex. It was cosmic. You did your spiritual tantra. You feel really good, and you're tired. And even ask, who does this serve, and you bless and everything. And then you go to sleep and have a really good night's sleep and wake up the next morning. And you got to go out again. Each day, the world hasn't been saved yet. The world's still at war. The storms are getting more fierce. The lies are getting crazier. They're finding sex slaves in Farmington, for God's sake. And so you got to go out again. And you're going to look for the Grail again. And you can't sleep in the same place twice means this, my friends. We have spiritual insights that make us happy. We have a spiritual insight, knowledge that makes us happy, or money, or love. And then we can't go to sleep there. You can rest for a day. If you did a lot today, go to sleep in your lovemaking, go to sleep in your wine, go to sleep in your song making, go to sleep in your money making, go to sleep today. But tomorrow we got to get up and each day must be conquered anew, and we got to go out again in search of the Grail. We're on a secret quest. When you leave here, it's going to be hard to tell your friends how this happened. I don't know how this happened, but I feel like I'm on a horse. I've got a sword. I have Arthur's sword. And here's another thing about the sword. Who's going to be Arthur and the king? Who's going to be the spiritual ego that should be the king of your life? The spiritual self should be the king of your life. The Christ should be the king of your life. The Dionysius, the Buddha should be the king of your life. Who's going to be the king of your life? How can you be king? You have to pull the sword out of the stone. And so Arthur pulls the sword out of the stone. We have materialistic sense-bound thinking. And your thinking has this sharp thinking. You have to pull your consciousness out of your sense-bound thinking and the materialism. 5 minutes a day meditating on the universal good, true, and beautiful. The three. The universal good, true, and beautiful. The threefold Neptune's sword that you can grab on to the higher Trinity. Plato's good, true, and beautiful. And the emptiness. The cup is empty. Buddha has the empty bowl. It's empty. How can the sword get in the cup if it's not empty? You may be sharp, but you may not be empty. You may be empty and you say you're not this and that, and you're a very empty person. How will you get sharp? You have to find other people that are very sharp and critical. We do it all the time. Some of us have the cup and we're looking for sharp people. Right? Some of us are very sharp, we're looking for somebody who's round and soft and won't complain. And when you get the sharp with the soft together in the yin and yang in heaven and earth, then the Grail appears. So the Grail, we're on a Grail quest. Another rule, friends. We're on a Grail quest, but you can't force it. You can't force the Grail. If heaven has to decide that you're going to meet the Grail, and they notice you when you do virtuous deeds. They notice you when you're selfless and you're empty, and they notice when you're sharp with spiritual thinking. It's a weird rule of the Grail. You can't conquer it. They go, you got to go on the Grail quest, but you can't conquer the Grail, and you can't make it happen. And your name has to come onto the Grail cup. Your name will appear on the Grail cup. There's always like funny rules to the Grail, and there's others. You have to protect women. You have to protect the little ones. You have to honor the land. Stuff like that. I'm not sure. I don't think Dick Cheney's a Grail guy, but maybe he is secretly. Maybe Dick Nixon. There's a lot of Dicks around the world, And maybe Dick Nixon was really a Grail guy. And Dick Tracy.
He certainly wasn't.
He's a private Dick. Sherlock Holmes, by the way, is on tonight on TV. The new Benedict Cumberbatch. Cucumber boy. I guess Cumberbatch has something to do with Cucumber Field. But he's like the new Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes. Originally Doyle was a theosophist who wrote Sherlock Holmes. And I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. And I'm actually working on my own book of Sherlock Holmes, the further adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think you see now, we enter as Arthur, but we have this experience of our myth in the midst of all the things that are happening in our life. In the midst of all the things that are happening in life. By the art of listening and the art of sacrificing and offering up our virtuous deeds, we may meet the Grail. And I hope you do. If you go to sleep tonight, last time I lectured, I invoked Jim Morrison and many others to join me on the quest. Tonight I invoke you, and all the fellows that wanted to make it but could not make it, to the Invisible College. I entreat you to join the Invisible College of the Grail Seekers and the quest of the sword and the cup, and that tonight you pray and meditate that you'll have a dream. Are you or are you not one of the Grail fellows? And we'll see what happens. And if there's no questions, there's a lot to go into, but you will see some writings of mine coming out soon. that will include the northern and southern mysteries and the mysteries of the east and west. That's another story, but that has to do with the rose and the cross. Do you have any questions about anything? The idea of April is the Grand Cross is that humanity is facing some trial and tribulation. And Jupiter on the United States sun, you think that land is going up and some parts of America are going to be worth a lot more, commodities. But we may have a very serious challenge to governments and via natural or man-made catastrophe. And it's not my position tonight to, you can go on YouTube and look at my last lecture, and I talk a lot more about these things. And my newsletter that comes out once a month on my website in the Rudolf Steiner archives. And if you're not on my mailing list, you should get on it. But I do feel like we're at some kind of crossroads where you have to realize that in many, many times the impulse of the Rosicrucians and the Grail, if Christianity would have picked up the Grail as part of their teaching, that the crown that fell from heaven, that gave us an ego and impulse toward freedom, and the angel we are that's pure in the becoming. And that if the Catholic Church would have picked up the Grail motif, the Grail cup that caught the blood of Christ when the spear went into him, and Joseph of Arimathea that took that cup, the very cup that was at the Last Supper, the cup that was given to Solomon, the cup that was given to Abraham spelling the word Brahman. Very interesting paradox or paradigm or enigma. And that there is a cup of the earth that holds the whole of us. There's a cup of the heavens. There's a cup of the rainbow. There's a cup of our hearts and souls. And there's a spear of the central axis that the earth spins around, and the apple of the earth upon it. There's a lot of cups and spears, but we should start with ourselves. And this idea of the cup of the Last Supper, do this in remembrance of me, and to put together the bread and the wine, or spirit and the matter, and have consciousness arise between our everything and our nothing. These are the deep mysteries. These are the deep mysteries of the mystery schools. That you are a wine of love, and you are a cup of emptiness and pure learning. Selflessness that's willing to learn is a cup that's empty. That you're willing to hold still. If you can hold your mind still, and you're not on medications and drugs, you can learn. If you're willing to learn, anything can happen. So I thank you again for this, and I want to remind you, if you can give a donation to my good cohort and friend Susan Piccarelli, and Lisa's here. Say hi to Lisa, who is an old Mayflower cadet. We have other Mayflower helpers in the past over here. Are you doing anything these days? Are you reading cards?
No, I work at the Boston Tea Room. I'm a manager over there.
She works at Boston, and my friend here. Are you doing anything? Are you doing?
Me?
Yeah. You both?
I'm doing readings and real estate, so.
Kathy,
3 R's.
Penzoff. Kathy Penzoff.
Windruff, yeah.
Windruff. And you're doing things too? And what are you doing now? You're a reader?
Family astrology, back into it.
Oh, you're back into astrology, yes. And she's practicing too. So there's a lot of interesting people. And my friend here, Troy, from us past lifetime, we lived in Troyes, France together, Troy. And he makes movies and advertisements and documents whatever you're doing. He's really good at it. And he's the guy that does that. And we have the thankful helpers at Om Cafe. Give them a big. And I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. The idea is that I know that each of us is a cup, and I'm often emptied with astonishment and wonder and amazement at how wonderfully complicated the earth is, and each other, and how as much as I know, I always have to let it go to learn more. And I'm always in astonishment and emptiness again. And only by when we're empty can we receive. So may you all have a sacred emptiness rather than a forced one. And may you come to the sharp awarenesses that prick us into enlightenment. The magical thorn, that not the one that Christ wore as thorns around the head, but the thorn that pricks our conscience to arise again. The sword that will make you, ladies and gentlemen, the sword that will make you a knight. Remember how they do it? They start at the top of your head, right? They start at the top of your head, and then they'll go to one shoulder, top of your head, and down to the other shoulder, and then they go to the top of your head again. Now, I'm not sure if they just cut you in half, and for us, the physical worlds are light and dark. They cut you in half, and then they have this idea of a triangle, right? And if you reveal the secrets, you may have to lose your head at that early degree, But you see, that wonderful picture of the lady who's doing that to the knight. He's kneeling, and the lady's doing it. It's the spiritual Sophia who's initiating your third eye in the center of the triangle. It's not on the frickin' dollar bill. All right. And so each of you, if you can imagine what I just did, that the Atma Buddha Manas and the truth and love and joy, truth and love and virtue, is initiating each of your heads to find the center that's warmed by your own personal feelings and love. And that tonight may you experience the Grail. And Rudolf Steiner said that it's better if you could do it cognitively, but for those of you who have a good heart, it's okay to do it in your sleep. Bless your hearts. We'll see you around next time. Ask Robert. Not that I know, but I'll try to find out if I don't know. See you.